Let's get started with our first news. Alex Pereira has responded to heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall after recent comments about his career path and matchups. Earlier this week, Aspinall shared his thoughts on Pereira's UFC run, suggesting that the matchups leading up to Magomed Ankalaev were quite favorable for him. Aspinall pointed out that Ankalaev, being a southpaw with strong range control and the constant threat of takedowns, was simply a tough stylistic challenge. Even in their first fight, Aspinall noted, Ankalaev didn't aggressively pursue takedowns, but just the threat of them made him a dangerous opponent. According to Aspinall, this matchup was never ideal for Pereira, and he wouldn't be surprised if Ankalaev beat him again. When asked by media to respond, Pereira didn't hold back. He explained that Aspinall's take didn't really make any sense. Pereira said, "We're talking about the biggest organization in the world. I'm a guy who came from kickboxing. I had no grappling experience and very little MMA experience. Yet I've been competing at the highest level of the sport. So, even if you were to put the worst guy in the UFC against me, I'd still be at a disadvantage in certain areas." Pereira made it clear that he doesn't see his journey as favorable at all, but rather one built on constant challenges and adjustments against world-class opposition. This response highlights just how much Pereira values the level of competition he's faced. Despite critics suggesting his rise was built on stylistic advantages, he believes every fight in the UFC has been a test, given his background and the steep learning curve he's had to overcome. His comments show confidence, resilience, and a strong reminder that in the UFC, there are no easy fights. So, while Tom Aspinall may see Ankalaev as a stylistic nightmare for Pereira, the former champion isn't accepting the narrative that his success came through favorable matchmaking. Instead, Pereira is standing firm on the idea that his career has been nothing but tough challenges from the very beginning. Move on to another news. Conor has once again made headlines, this time claiming that his long-rumored White House fight is not just in talks, but officially signed and finalized. Speaking with full confidence, Conor stated that this isn't speculation or rumor anymore, but a done deal. In his words, signed, delivered. It ain't a negotiation, it's a done deal. Signed, delivered. For Conor, this is much more than just another fight. This is a historic moment he says will ignite support across America, and he's determined to make it one of the biggest spectacles the sport has ever seen. The Irish superstar revealed that he will compete in Washington as part of UFC's massive milestone event, billed as UFC 200 for the America's 250 celebrations. When pressed about whether Dana White needed to give the final sign-off, Conor brushed that aside, making it clear that he and Dana are in constant communication and that there is no hurdle in the way. "Me and Dana are in constant communications," he explained. "We've done incredible business together. I'm the highest generating fighter of all time in the UFC. We've built this sport to levels nobody ever imagined, and this White House card is the next step." Conor also highlighted the UFC's groundbreaking $7.7 billion deal with Paramount, which he says has opened the door for new opportunities, including this massive celebration card. According to him, that deal has already been approved and is ready to rock, meaning the stage is now perfectly set for the Mac to step into history once again. With his usual flair, he declared, "Bring in the big dog, the Mac G. Erie. We are ready." This announcement reinforces what fans already know. When it comes to making headlines, nobody does it quite like Conor. He thrives in the spotlight, and whether it's selling out arenas, breaking pay-per-view records, or now fighting on the lawn of the most iconic building in America, he remains the UFC's biggest star. For Conor, this isn't just another fight, it's a statement, and he's making sure the whole world is watching. Move on to another news. Robert Whittaker has shared his thoughts on Alex Pereira's upcoming rematch with Magomed Ankalaev, and he admits he has serious doubts about Pereira's chances. Whittaker explained that the more he studies the fight, the less confident he becomes in seeing a clear path to victory for Pereira. While Pereira certainly has the knockout power and the striking ability to turn any fight around, Whittaker believes the stylistic challenge posed by Ankalaev is simply a tough puzzle to solve. Whittaker broke down what went wrong in the first fight, pointing out that Pereira wasn't aggressive enough and didn't lead the dance the way he usually does. He explained that Pereira is at his most dangerous when he's the one moving forward, applying constant pressure and hunting his opponent down. That's when he lands his biggest shots and creates those devastating knockouts that made him such a feared force. But against Ankalaev, things were different. Ankalaev applied pressure of his own, mixed in different looks, and always carried the threat of takedowns, whether he was fully committing to them or not. This, according to Whittaker, forced Pereira into a more hesitant style and kept him working backward, which isn't where he thrives. Whittaker did acknowledge that Pereira's best moments came later in the fight, once he adjusted and became more comfortable. However, he still sees the matchup as extremely difficult. In his eyes, for Pereira to succeed in the rematch, he needs to push forward, get behind his punches, and truly believe in his power to land those impact shots that can change the course of the fight. He needs to be the aggressor, the hunter, the one dictating the pace and forcing Ankalaev to react. But here's the problem. If Pereira does move forward aggressively, that might open the door for Ankalaev to capitalize on his wrestling. Whittaker noted that maybe this time, Ankalaev doesn't just threaten with takedowns, but actually lands one or two, which could completely change the dynamic. That's where the risk lies. Being aggressive is what makes Pereira dangerous, but it also increases the chances of Ankalaev dragging him into deep waters on the ground. For Whittaker, it all adds up to a very tricky scenario. He doesn't doubt Pereira's talent, but when looking at the matchup, he finds it incredibly hard to see a clear way for him to get the job done. His final take was simple. This is going to be a very hard fight for Alex Pereira. Move on to another news. Khalil Roundtree had nothing but high praise for Merab, especially when it comes to his unbelievable cardio and relentless work ethic. During camp, Khalil explained what it's been like to train alongside Merab as he prepares for his title fight, and he admitted that it has been both fascinating and inspiring to witness firsthand. According to Khalil, Merab is built differently. He described him as a completely different animal in the gym, someone who seems to possess an endless tank of energy. Khalil recalled moments where he would watch Merab go through 6 hard rounds one day, only to come back the very next day and push through another 6 rounds at the same pace and intensity. For Khalil, that kind of drive and physical capability is simply hard to wrap his head around. Sometimes I watch Merab and I really don't understand where the energy comes from, he admitted. I just watched you go through 6 rounds yesterday, and now you're here again, pushing through 6 more, still able to do everything at such a high level. It's incredible. Khalil described Merab as a massive ball of energy, always on the move, never slowing down, and always pushing himself beyond limits. That level of consistency and grit has clearly made a big impression on him. He noted that it's not only impressive, but also inspiring to be around. Being in the presence of someone so determined and so tireless in preparation, Khalil explained, elevates everyone else in the gym. It forces you to look at your own effort, your own pace, and ask yourself if you're really doing enough. He emphasized that there are very few athletes in the world, not just in MMA, who can match Merab's level of conditioning and dedication. That's what makes training with him such a unique and valuable experience. Khalil closed his thoughts by saying there really aren't many like Merab, and that witnessing his preparation up close has given him an even greater respect for the man and the kind of relentless competitor he truly is. For Khalil Roundtree, Merab isn't just preparing for a title fight, he's setting the standard of what it means to be all in. Move on to another news. Dan Hooker reacted to the Arman fight with a raw, full-throttle response that left no room for doubt about how he feels. Yesterday, some fans noticed we posted late. That delay came after Dana White dropped a massive announcement revealing the main and co-main events for the upcoming card. And once the news hit, Dan took to X with a blunt post. I'll cave his head in. He later sat down with Submission Radio and doubled down on that sentiment, making it clear he wants to put hands on the man when he sees Arman. On Submission Radio, Dan was unforgiving. If Arman walks into his range, Hooker said he's going to hit him, and that will end the night. If you put me near the guy, the fight's off, he explained. I'm going to try to hit him, throw at him, and piss him off. He stressed that the UFC wants this matchup to happen, and that it will be up to the organization to keep them apart until fight night. The implication was obvious. These two need space because once they cross paths, chaos will follow. Dan went even further, launching into a personal rant about Arman that mixed frustration with theatrical bravado. He admitted he doesn't actually know much about Arman, but that hasn't stopped the bile. I don't like his face, Hooker said bluntly. I don't like that his face is attached to his body, and I would love to separate the two. Few lines land with the casual menace of that comment. He backed it up by saying he can't wait to elbow him in the nose and make a statement inside the octagon. The tone throughout was equal parts provocation and invitation. Dan made it clear he's not interested in polite build-up or press conference pleasantries. He wants confrontation. Submission Radio deserves credit for getting the interview out quickly. because the rawness of Hooker's remarks is exactly the kind of unfiltered heat that fuels fight hype. Whether this becomes a cage war or a media circus remains to be seen. But Hooker has staked his claim. He plans to bring pressure, animosity, and violence on fight night to ensure nothing about the encounter is pretty or polite. Expect sparks when these two cross paths, because Dan Hooker has made his intent abundantly clear, and he's ready to fight like he means it. Fans should brace for a brutal, unforgiving brawl when they meet. Move on to another news. Dana White has suspended UFC flyweight Ramazan Tamarov for the use of PEDs, handing down a 12-month ban after failing 2 out-of-competition tests. The banned substance was trimetazidine, often shortened to TMZ, a drug commonly prescribed for heart patients, but also known to improve endurance in athletes. The positive tests came from samples collected on June 12th and again on July 4th. According to a statement released by Combat Sports Anti-Doping and provided to MMA Junkie, Tamarov is not believed to have gained any performance-enhancing advantage from the trace amounts found in his samples. The report stated that Tamarov had been prescribed TMZ by a doctor, but he failed to verify whether the medication was permitted under the UFC's strict testing guidelines. That oversight cost him dearly, as the failed tests triggered an immediate suspension and also forced him out of a planned fight in Abu Dhabi on July 8th. Tamarov later released a video on social media to explain the situation. In the video, he revealed that he had been training in Thailand, where he developed multiple infections and wounds. Seeking treatment, he visited a dermatologist who prescribed TMZ. Tamarov admitted he never double-checked whether the medication was approved, and that mistake ultimately led to his positive results. Despite his explanation, the rules remain firm. With the retroactive suspension backdated to his July 4th test, Tamarov will not be eligible to compete until July 5th, 2026. This marks a significant setback for the flyweight prospect, who is building momentum inside the octagon. Tamarov currently holds a perfect 2-0 record in the UFC. He made a strong debut with a first-round finish over CJ Vergara at UFC Fight Night 244, followed by a decision victory against Charles Johnson at UFC Fight Night 253. Both performances showcased his potential as a rising name in the division, but this suspension will now stall his career for the next year. For Dana White and the UFC, the message is once again crystal clear. Strict compliance with anti-doping rules is non-negotiable. Even if a banned substance comes through a legitimate prescription, the responsibility lies fully with the fighter to ensure it's cleared by the testing agency before use. This latest suspension reinforces the UFC's hard line on PED violations and serves as a reminder that there are no shortcuts inside the sport's biggest stage. Move on to another news. Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo have both gone on record predicting that Corey Sandhagen will pull off the upset this weekend against Merab to capture the UFC bantamweight title. Usman explained that he believes Corey's striking will be the key difference, pointing out how sharp and technical he is when it comes to cutting angles and finding openings. "I'm going to go more significant strikes for Corey," Usman said. "He's a technician. He knows how to move, he knows how to cut the angle, and he's going to land big strikes." Not only that, Corey is one of the hardest guys to put away. Outside of Aljo, I don't think we've ever seen anyone do it. Usman emphasized that Sandhagen's durability, combined with his precision striking, gives him a real shot to shock the division. Cejudo agreed, highlighting the variety of weapons Corey brings to the octagon. He mentioned Corey's ability to use his hands, knees, elbows, and footwork to control the pace of a fight. According to Cejudo, if Corey can remain composed under the pressure and avoid gassing out, he has all the tools necessary to dethrone Merab. "If Corey's able to get composure tomorrow, that's it," Cejudo said. "He's got the tools, hands, knees, elbows, he can do it all. He just needs to keep his gas tank strong, stay calm, and he'll find his rhythm." They both pointed out that Merab's path to victory is likely through takedowns and grinding out control, but that strategy may not rack up the kind of significant strikes needed to sway the fight if it turns into a striking battle. Usman added that in a purely stand-up fight, Corey is one of the best sharpshooters he's ever seen inside the octagon. By the end of their ground-downs, both Usman and Cejudo were leaning heavily towards Sandhagen, with Cejudo even admitting that part of his pick comes from the heart. "For the matchup, I'm going with my teammate, my boy, Corey Sandhagen," he said, for the and new. The stage is now set for a classic clash of styles. Merab's relentless pressure and wrestling against Corey's elite striking and composure under fire. And if Usman and Cejudo are right, we could be looking at a new bantamweight champion when the dust settles.